Hi everyone! This is the latest in my Positive Jam series. I just wanted to explain how it is that we're creating these comics because there's been a lot of questions. How and why? And why not crowdfunding? So, this is about the Nine Vault Anthology series. It's just 2 years old. It has not yet reached its 3rd birthday. Features creators from the AAA Discord, and we basically have some rules for participation that relate to PG-13. We need black and white because that's what keeps our print costs low. And each book has a theme, which we vote on. And then the final theme is chosen. Finally, how do we get the books printed? And that's print on demand at cost. So it's managed and edited by the admins of the Discord. Recognize full creator rights. You can reprint your own work as you like, but you cannot go and take somebody else's work from the book and print that. You must opt in to take part in the book, and it's not mandatory for being part of our Discord. So we have a Discord where all this stuff gets organized, and there are people that have been part of the Discord from the beginning that don't take part in the anthology, and it's totally cool. Most of the work that's done on the book, as far as organizing it, putting the print file together, doing the printing and publishing, managing the files and dealing with submissions and getting the margins in order, dealing with the printer, is all done by me. It was my idea. I originated this idea before I was ever an admin or anything. I think you may have heard me say, originally it was going to be me and a guy named Evan Hill. And Evan had a medical thing pop up and couldn't take part in the very first one. So we had this idea it was going to be like Wiz Comics, and it might be 32 pages because I had a couple of stories and he had a story that he was working on, and it was all going to be cool. In the end, a lot of other people wanted to jump on, and so that's how it came about. Other admins are involved in other decisions and discussions, and in general, like I said, we agree on things. One thing that is especially done by the other admins is working on the covers, deciding what the cover looks like, who's going to do the coloring and stuff like that. And, we talk about cover concepts, but once you've decided on something, it gets handed over to an artist who actually does the work. As I mentioned, printed by Lulu, lulu.com, at cost, and most volumes are around $6. The larger ones, for example, the pulp one, over here is, no, it's this, I think it's this one over here. It's like 224 pages, and it costs about twice as much. I think it's around $11 or $12. I can't remember how much. And the rest are kind of somewhere in the middle. How we measure success, I will admit, I had the idea for this when I saw Sideburns posting a picture of all the books stacked up. And I had this idea that, we could measure success in literal inches. This is over 1,000 pages of comics. Or, if you don't want to measure it in inches, you could measure it in square feet. 1 Boba Fett, 2 Boba Feets. And you can see I've got 8 volumes here, including 2 holiday editions, which would be the Christmas one and the Halloween one. And this year we were going to do like a Harvest Festival sort of Thanksgiving issue, but I think those plans may have fallen through. We'll see what happens. Like I said, we're only 2 years old. We've only been around for 2 years, and we've already done this many. So what are the benefits of doing it of POD? Well, first of all, Lulu, which is an established commercial entity, handles the printing and the storefront. We don't have to touch any of that. If the customer wants a book, they go to the lulu.com website, and they can buy the book. And the cool thing is Lulu ships internationally because they have locally sourced printers. So if you're in Australia, or if you're in Europe somewhere or whatever, you don't have to pay overseas shipping. I don't have to go to the post office and send you a book, and you don't have to give me your even address. Look, we don't touch addresses or credit card information. So it's easier for customers to kind of trust us. They don't have to trust us. They can trust Lulu. There are 0 upfront costs other than time. So, one of the other admins wanted me to point out that, yeah, you do got to put time into that to create a product. But as far as money goes, you just kind of start a project and start putting it together, and when it's ready to go, you make it live. The unit price is higher than for an offset print run. That's totally true. Because essentially what you're getting with print on demand is a print run of one book each time you get it. So it can be, it's not like if you were to buy 1,000 books, you might be able to drive the price down through, bulk pricing to much lower. But for us, for our books, and they average out, I would say, at around 100 pages. Some of them are a bit less. Some of them are much more, 224 pages, as I mentioned, for the pulp one. Lulu itself is a reputable business. They protect their copyright holders. They'll even provide you a free ISBN. And they produce stuff like the Etherington Brothers How to Think When You Draw manuals, if you're familiar with those. I'm not associated with Lulu. I don't get any money or kickbacks from Lulu. I know them from poetry journals, academia, and like role-playing game stuff. And so it was just kind of an easy fit for me to think, well, why don't we do a comic with it? Now here's this thing about crowdfunding. I think crowdfunding is great, actually. But we don't do it, and here's why. If you're crowdfunding, you have to carefully manage your costs. There are upfront costs, and those are significant, and I'll get into some of those numbers in a second. Both of the platforms, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, take a chunk of the funds raised. It's 5%. So if you do happen to raise, let's say, $1,000, they're going to take, $500, not $500. They'll take $50 out of $1,000. But they also take a percentage of payment processing fee from each customer. So no matter what happens, the platform is going to do fine. You may be stuck with some overruns if you don't manage it correctly, but the Kickstarter, IGG, they got it going good. So if you're going to make, let's say, EVS levels of money, he had two Kickstarters, I believe, that were over $1,000. And he's closing in, last I saw, on over $6 million if you combine all his campaigns. It's worth it. But for us, we're unknowns, right? So crowdfunding is less, it makes less sense for us. As I mentioned, campaigns often fail. If you are trying to do a crowdfunding campaign for an anthology, it's kind of a weird choice for crowdfunding because the cash returns are so low, and you got to split it a number of ways equal to the number of people that are contributing, or you got to give them free books. And what does that mean? Well, shipping and fulfillment. You're going to pay for the shipping multiple times, as I mentioned here. You're going to pay for Mixam to ship the book to you, or whoever your printer is. And that's going to be like $50. Then you're going to pay to ship the books out to each one of your contributing artists or creators. You might ship 2 or 3 books out, and that's going to cost, I don't know, depending, it's not cheap to ship books out, and our books are bigger than most CG books, which are like, 50 to 80 pages. Ours are at least 100 pages, usually more. So, also, what if your story is just 8 pages? It just doesn't make sense to crowdfund it if it's an 8-page story. It makes sense to put it in an anthology, but then, once again, anthologies don't do well, or don't seem to do well enough on crowdfunding platforms. Maybe if it's a really good anthology or something like that. I've been part of a crowdfunding anthology, and I was very happy because I was just a contributor. But I didn't expect anything. So if I was, somebody expecting money, it might be a different story. Here's a little thing about upfront costs, and I'm recalling a Sweetcast video where he breaks down, about how much it costs to launch a successful crowdfunder. And, by the way, Sweetcast, he can draw, by the way. He doesn't draw. He actually hires a guy to do the art, and he hires an inker, and he hires a guy to do covers, and letterer, and all that other stuff, colorer. And his estimate was around $4,000, and that's just to get the campaign started with a couple of kind of primer pages that you put up and other stuff. It does not include the campaign or the fulfillment and all that other stuff. That's how much he's spending just to set the campaign up. And then he's hoping to get some money back on the back end. And for certain creators, that's a great choice. I don't think it's for everyone, though. In general, we don't have that kind of money to put our cash up front. This is kind of a gotcha point, but I'm going to cop to it immediately. Did you remember to pay yourself? You put money into training, hours of labor to create your comic, hours of labor to manage the campaign and materials. Of course you did not. Of course you did not. But it's not strictly about the money, and I understand that. That would be considered. But creators want to express themselves creatively, which is an important factor. That's why we really do it, right? Well, that's why I do it too. So there's no money, so why do we do it? Well, here's our reasons. We want to tell our stories and make our comics. That's number one. We're also having a lot of fun. I want to make the point that there's not much of an audience right now. Most of us that are making comics are making them for our friends and families and other comics creators. You know, maybe you're getting a comic, maybe you're getting a run of 3, you know, once the comic is finally available in print from Lulu, you'll get 3 of them and you'll give 1 to your mom and you'll put 1 on the shelf and maybe you'll, give 1 to a friend or something. Who knows? I understand that's how it is. And by the way, I see the sales data from Lulu, so I know who's buying the comics and how many. And I can tell you, like for our first 3, those which are the ones that I shut down, we hadn't had a sale in 3 months for any of those 3. Because the people who wanted them pretty much already had them. People are talking about them, never bought them ever. So anyways, each published volume stands as proof of copyright. They're officially published. You can even have an ISBN number, although they're not necessarily to have it's just a catalog number. But you have the front page, and on the front page of every comic that we do, it says copyright, and Lulu will help you protect your copyright. It doesn't cost anything. I say it literally costs nothing, other than, once again, time. We're still learning how to make comics. This is so true, and I'm right there with it, and I've got 606 published pages that I'm working on, and I'm still trying to get to 1,000. Still learning how. I'm still taking classes on how. We're also been developing our own IP and storylines. If you caught my video yesterday about Prometheus Powers and Assault and the Arcadian Titans, all of this is kind of playing out in the anthologies and in my own stuff. We're also specifically interested in print versus web. Sure, we could take our stuff and put it up online, and that would be cool too. However, look at our next one. Nobody can slap an ad in our book like they can on a website. If you are a webcomics guy and you see an ad, on the site where your comic is, chances are, unless you're in a certain tier, which also seems very rigged, you're not getting any of the money from that ad. Okay, finally, it's cool to have a physical copy of your own work. I refer right now to Jake Parker's video, You Need a Product, Not a Project. It is cool to have a physical copy of your own work. It's proof. And then finally, your credibility as a creator increases when everyone can see how good you are and how good you aren't. They can tell. They can look at the book and they go, yeah, okay, yeah, this guy's he's pretty good, and this guy's he still needs some work. But that's okay, because we pretty much are having a good time with what we're doing. Also, even though it is done for, 0 profit, we do these at cost. You could sell it if you wanted to. The books are produced at cost, so it's, it might cost $5. I think the manga volume was available for under $6. So let's say you bought a couple of copies of the manga volume and you wanted to sell them somewhere for $10. You could. Or you could take your own stories out of the anthology and say, okay, I printed this in the space anthology that we did. Now I want to do my own book. And I'm just going to take my story out and I'm going to put it in my own book. I'm going to put it on my own Lulu account. I'm going to set the price, what I want to set it at, and then I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to give myself 100% of the profit. You could totally do that. That's totally cool. One thing you can't do, though, is take the not the physical copy, but rather the working PDF files for these books and pass them to other people. It's a violation of their copyright and of their creator rights. All right, moving on. This is just my work. These are the stuff that aren't set at 0. This is all Peter. This is all Rabbit Fighter 13. Most of these appeared originally in the 9-Volt anthology. These first 3 books are about 50 pages each. There's like 44 or 48, and I can't remember what the third one is. There are actually 232 pages of comics here. You can see Assault. I went over that one the other day, and that one's 44 pages. This is Adam Frankenstein, which is done in I think it was November 2020, and that one's 16 pages. This is an interesting book here on the upper right. This is an Adam Frankenstein plus Dracula double feature story that I did with a guy I met on doing the anthology, and he did a story and I did a story. We put it together in a book, and it was easy to set it up to say, okay, here's the print run cost, here's the print cost, 50% of the profit goes to you, 50% goes to me, and we're all good. It's much easier to split it 2 ways than to split something 7 ways or 9 ways or something like that. Here is even a 4-page newspaper. This was not done through Lulu, it was done through something else. Okay, let's move on. What about social media? How many of you are social media experts? Well, I'll just tell you right now, I'm not. I just started doing these videos because people were very confused about, how we're doing the book. So anyways, there are so many YouTube channels that feature people doing comics, quote unquote, and they're themselves a sort of job that can give you some money, but it's usually not too much money, and it's mostly, like I said, no money. It is different at the top. I think if you get 1,000 subscribers, you can take super chats, and you can have an entertaining show like Howard Stern or something, except it's comic books. It's very personality driven. I probably don't have the personality for it, although I'm a nice guy. I don't think I'm that entertaining, at least on cam. Based on your subscriber count, views, and virality, I think it's a rigged game, and especially lately because they changed the way the algorithm works. Also, you ever see these channels? There's tons of these channels, these comics channels, where these talking heads are desperately trying to get people to jump on their crowdfunder and help them fund. Or you see these people that are just kind of hanging out in a room and they're all making comics. But then when you look at what they're doing, they're just drawing. They're not making comics at all. Comics are sequential art that forms a story. It could be printed or it could be online, but comics is not just drawing a picture. Even if it's a picture of a superhero. Superheroes are not the only thing you can make comics about. Personally, I do adventure comics. Some people are also just pretending. The focus is actually the channel. Hey, everybody come to my channel. Hey, this channel is what I think about all the time. So the comic is kind of an also important thing, but it's really just part of their channel thing. Some people have to adopt a whole persona. And they'll even admit to it. Has anybody seen Ethan Becker? I love Ethan Becker. He's admitted it's a persona. It's also completely required for crowdfunding that you be online running a YouTube channel. I don't have time for it. I'm not that interested in it. But for POD, you don't have to do any of that stuff at all. You don't even need a social media presence for the most part. What you do need to do is you need to come to our Discord and be part of our community because it's a community showcase. Well, anyways, all right. Some of you might be offended. You're like, this guy is dissing crowdfunding. Not at all. I still think crowdfunding is cool. It just doesn't make sense for anthologies. This is actually my contribution page on Indiegogo. I have 19 pages, not 19 projects, but 19 pages of crowdfunding support, where I bought book after book after book. And there it is. Almost 100% is comics. I will say that not all of it is. I bought a couple of role-playing games too. I'm part of it, man. I buy the comics. I don't like mainstream comics. I think they're run by hateful media conglomerates that I'm not interested in. Although I do like the 60s and 70s of, certain large mainstream comic companies. All right, finally, you could join us. If this interested you, you can do it yourself. You don't even need me. You don't even need Lulu. You could find another print-on-demand place and kind of copy our model. It's an easy model to copy, and as I said, there's not a lot of effort in it, other than the effort to create your own comics. Or you could even join us. I even mentioned, come over to our Discord. Strength in numbers. And if you're wondering, well, nobody's going to read my comic. Well, we will. We have to, because if we're going to put it in our book, we have to take a look at it. And, it's something. As I said, friends and family at this point. This is how you create a scene. The 9 Gold Anthology is a community showcase, so to take part, you have to be part of our community. Contact us, and we'll talk. All right. Hope you enjoyed this video. You don't have to like, follow, or subscribe, but welcome to my Instagram, and I hope you have a great weekend.